We're now joined by Omer Ozkizilcik. He is a security analyst at the SETA Foundation. Omer, good to have you on. All right, the quartet meeting between Presidents Erdogan, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Macron and Angela Merkel is currently underway at 10 Downing Street. What do you expect to come out?
So actually, it's quite hard to have a forecast, but I think the statements of the French President Macron indicates something which was heavily ignored, and I think this is that he tried to have pressure and harsh rhetoric before the summit happens. And I think this may indicate that Germany and Britain are not as fierce as the French position in regards to the demands of the Turkish position for aid and supplies for the safe zone to enable the voluntary return of Syrian refugees back to these areas. So I think the French president is trying to balance the situation in the negotiation process with pre-rhetorics before the summit. And I think that his position is actually weaker than he tried to assert himself during his press conference with the President of the United States of America. And here we have also to see this in line with the previous process, because Turkey, after starting this military operation together with the Syrian National Army, had a major summit with the Americans, afterwards with Russia, and Turkey made already 2 deals with the 2 major powers inside Syria. So French, Germany, and Britain, none of them are real actors in the Syrian dispute. So Turkey alone has more to say, more effect on the ground in Syria than all of these 3 countries together. So I think there would be a kind of harsh negotiation inside. It's quite for sure that there are huge difference in the perception for all sides. But at the end of the day, if the European states want to gain anything, they have to make some concessions to Turkey. They have to accept some Turkish demands. Otherwise, they will have just no say. So we have to be quite realistic in our approach. If Erdogan goes out of this summit without gaining anything, Europeans will gain also nothing. So they are on the weaker side and they need to deliver. And there will be also harsh discussions about the national security threat towards Turkey. And I think President Erdogan will clearly argue that a threat for the Europeans is also a threat for Turkey. But a threat for Turkey needs also to be a threat for the Europeans. Otherwise, there will be no genuine alliance between these countries. And we have seen in remarks of the French president.
Okay, Omer, so you're saying that these countries are not real actors, but the reality is they do hold real power. The question is this going to be a tough sell for Turkey to get the European backing for what Turkey wants to do in northeastern Syria in terms of creating a safe zone, as well as initiating the process to sort of repatriate more than millions of Syrians back to their country?
So let's put it quite clearly and openly. There are 2 options. Either the Syrian refugees go back to Syria, or they go to the European Union. There's no third option here, because Turkish society can no longer burden this huge burden of the Syrian refugees any longer. So they have to decide. Either the Europeans play along with Turkey and accept the Turkish demands and help to facilitate the return of Syrian refugees back to Syria according to the rules set by Turkey, or they will have to deal with a new refugee flow at their borders, because there are huge economic problems inside Turkey in regards to Syrian refugees. There are social tensions. There's political upcomings against the refugees, and there's also an increase of hate speech. So we have to find a solution. The situation of the refugees inside Turkey is not sustainable.
Yeah, this is definitely a weak point for Europe because of the priority for Europeans to sort of to stop migration, perhaps even reverse it. All right, all this comes at an estimated price tag of $27 billion. Turkey has already spent $40 billion on the Syrian refugee crisis. How much can Turkey put up? How much are the Europeans going to put up?
So this is, we have to put these numbers in relation to the realities on the ground. First of all, the firstly intended safe zone area was much bigger than the area which Turkey managed to liberate together with the Syrian National Army. So the cost will be less than it was previously expected. Secondly, we have to think here about the cost for the Europeans. So in relation, a Syrian refugee who gets asylum in the European Union, in France, in Germany, is 10 times more costly than a Syrian refugee living in Syria for the European Union. If they would pay for them, if would they pay for their return. So even for the cost measures, when the European Union decides to support these efforts, it will be much cheaper for them. And it will be also better for the Syrians as well, because if the Syrians go back to Syria, the political transition process can be accelerated even more, and even more Syrians will be able to vote in a possible future free election for a new government, new constitution in Syria, because the political transition process is still ongoing. And it's quite important to facilitate the return of Syrians back to Syria and to end this continuing ethnic cleansing or demographic change of Syrians inside Syria.
All right. Well, Turkey is certainly going into this quartet meeting very determined. Let's see what it comes out with. All right. Omer Ozkizilcik joining us live. Thank you very much for joining us here on the NewsHour.